It finally looks like we have some reporting on where some of the key battles could stand for the Sox this season. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. Don't forget, we are going to be live tonight right here on this channel. It's our last live stream before our opening day live stream, our last off-season live stream of 2025. That's pretty impressive to say. It's going to be a ton of fun, so make sure you're there 7 p.m. Eastern time right here on this channel. But before we get there, today's video, we're going over some of the latest reporting on some of the key battles for the Red Sox this spring training and where things currently stand, because honestly, it's a bit surprising. To me, there are two key battles right now for spring training that are standing out above the rest. The first one is the closing position, and yesterday, we got our first report as to where the Red Sox may stand. An article by Chris Cotillo and Sean McAdam came out. That full article's link is going to be in the description, but from there, we got this really interesting quote. Quote, "The closer role remains officially unclaimed, but with just days left in Florida, Aroldis Chapman appears to have become the in-house favorite to close games to start the season." I don't really know how I feel about this. On one hand, if the closing position was truly, hey, who's going to perform the best out of Chapman, Hendricks, and Slayton, who have been the names most mentioned, that's who's going to get the job. Chapman, honestly, in my opinion, right now has done enough to do that, especially, and honestly, mostly, because these other two guys have struggled a little bit. Specifically, Hendricks, who was, in my opinion, the clear favorite to close games for the Red Sox coming into spring. Yeah, he looks like he's still shaking off a whole lot of rust. In 5 innings of work, he's allowed 6 earned on 12 hits with only 4 strikeouts. Slayton, honestly, actually looks pretty solid. Overall, the numbers don't look good, either with a 4.91 ERA, but that's mostly due to 1 inning where he allowed 2 earned in 2 2/3. Outside of that, he's been really solid at limiting damage. He's just not missing a ton of bats this spring. Only 3 strikeouts in that time span. So I think that's something that stood out a little bit with Slayton, whereas Chapman has 2 earned in 5 1/3 innings with 10 strikeouts and 4 walks mixed in there as well. His stuff truly does look like it is the most polished in terms of a closer role this spring training. So again, if you're talking about just strictly competition-wise, yeah, Chapman's kind of winning out right now, but that doesn't stop me from making this decision a little bit nerve-wracking. Despite the statistics, Chapman being the closer of the Boston Red Sox makes me a little bit nervous. I know the history he has to back up. He could be a fantastic closer, but he hasn't been a real closer in Major League Baseball since 2021. He was kind of awful in 2022, and since leaving the Yankees, he's been in a more high-leverage reliever role than a closer. Even looking at last year, where he had 14 saves with the Pirates, that ERA was up towards 9 at 3.79. Combine that with the age and the fact that he's a walk machine, it feels like every closing opportunity is going to end up being a heart attack to start the season, right? And we know just how fun heart attack closers are. Kenley did a good job closing for the Red Sox, but it felt like every single one of his outings was, oh my God, please, Kenley, don't do this to us today, even though he really did close the majority of the saves. And that kind of looks like that's what Chapman's going to be with the Boston Red Sox. Now, I get nervous with these things because, one, 37 years old, pumping 102, he looks fine. Right, he looks absolutely fine, but Mother Nature has a way of sort of inserting herself in all these conversations once you get towards 40 in Major League Baseball. And the Red Sox historically, especially last season, really did not have a great defensive line behind the plate, right? It was Connor Wong, who was not great at blocking baseballs. It was Reese McGuire and then Danny Jansen, who actually was really good at blocking baseballs, so not really much else. This year, the hope is that if Connor Wong gets better, this is going to be less of an issue. But if he doesn't, right, Aroldis Chapman is a known wild pitcher. That makes me really, really nervous for that closing position. Now, I will say, one, nothing's set in stone right now, right? There's still a week left in spring training. This is just currently who the favorite is to be that closer role. So things could change over the course of the next week. Two, if it doesn't, I think this is still going to be a pretty fluid situation throughout the season. I think with Liam Hendricks shaking off the rust, if there gets to a point where, let's say, Aroldis Chapman's struggling a bit, his last couple of saves haven't gone well, Liam Hendricks has looked good in that 7th or 8th inning, they're going to be pretty quick to sub those two out. And even Slayton, right? I think even Slayton is a part of that as well. He continues to do well, and then all of a sudden, Chapman or Hendricks, they're struggling. I think they're going to be pretty quick to mix and match these guys in the closer role. So it's kind of still a close closer by committee type philosophy, in my opinion. It's just more of a, okay, for the first 2 months of the season, Chapman's going to be the closer. And then once he starts struggling, the next month and a half, Hendricks is going to be the closer or whatever, right? Or Slayton becomes the closer. And then to finish out the season, Liam Hendricks takes over that job full time as they get towards the playoffs, right? I think that's sort of what the Red Sox mentality is going to be, regardless of who they name come opening day. I will say, despite my concerns with Aroldis Chapman, I do like the fact that the Red Sox are at least considering at this point naming one singular closer, right? We talk about it all the time and how closer by committee and going into opening day saying, hey, you know, one of these three guys is going to end up closing games for you, throws off the balance of the bullpen a bit, and we saw what that looked like in that one season where they did try this, and it didn't look very pretty. Even with the experience the Red Sox have in this role right now, I still didn't love that idea. So even though I'm nervous about Chapman being a closer, I do like the idea of the Red Sox coming together and saying, look, we're going to name Chapman the closer, and then we'll work from there as to how we're going to fit these other guys in. I think that's the smart thing to do. You know, I've said it a bunch. I'll say it again. I don't love the idea of rooting for Aroldis Chapman. I'm going to because he's in a Red Sox uniform and he's trying to help the Red Sox win games. Still don't love it. What I will say, too, in terms of the nerve-wracking stuff here, I have a lot of faith in Andrew Bailey. I have a lot of faith in the Red Sox new pitching philosophy. If they are sitting there this spring and saying, look, we think this is the guy that's going to be able to close out games, I don't really have any other choice right now but to come here and trust that the Red Sox are making the right decision. So that's kind of where I'm at with this Chapman stuff. Again, nothing set in stone. This is just where the Red Sox head is at currently in terms of the favorites for this position. The other big report in this article comes in the form of their second base battle. Quote, top prospect Kristian Campbell remains squarely in the mix to win the second base job despite struggling at the plate so far this spring and appears to be the favorite in the mind of team decision makers over David Hamilton, Vaughn Grissom, and others. This one caught me by surprise a little bit. Not totally, though, right? Because this is kind of what we've been hearing since the spring training started. It's really the big reason why we had that whole thing with Rafael Devers and Alex Bregman. If Kristian Campbell wasn't a part of the picture, I think Alex Bregman would have pretty squarely been at second base. Now that Campbell's in here, obviously things changed a little bit, so it doesn't totally surprise me that despite the struggles this spring, and trust me, there have been struggles at the plate for Kristian Campbell this spring. He's hitting just 167 with a 286 on base percentage and a 222 slug for a 508 OPS in 15 games, with the strikeout jumping out a bit as well, with 15 strikeouts in those 15 games as well. I think what we're seeing here is a pretty clear example of sometimes spring training stats mean absolutely nothing to teams. We talk about this all the time with these sort of prospects and these sort of maybe bench role players like a Trace Thompson that comes out here and they absolutely crush during the spring or they struggle during the spring, and we immediately like, oh, Trace Thompson, that's a dude that needs to be on the starting roster come opening day. Or, man, Kristian Campbell, Vaughn Grissom, whoever it is that's struggling, Jaron Duran even, those guys are either taking a step back this season or they don't deserve to be on the major league roster at all. Whereas teams are looking at this as sort of a, okay, we're just warming up, right? This is just sort of a little bit of a showcase here, but we know what Kristian Campbell can do. We know what he's capable of, and we still believe in the player despite the results this spring not being here. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing with this Kristian Campbell stuff because they're not totally wrong. A 15-game sample size probably shouldn't be enough to determine whether or not Kristian Campbell's ready for opening day. However, what I will say is it is a little bit surprising considering, one, David Hamilton has been pretty solid this spring training, both defensively and offensively. He's looked pretty good. Now, it hasn't been stellar, it hasn't been otherworldly, but he has looked pretty good at the plate. I was sort of assuming that because of David Hamilton's performance, because they do have Vaughn Grissom and Nick Sogard, as well as Romy Gonzalez for this major league team, they would have taken the opportunity to say, okay, here's what Kristian Campbell needs to work on. We're going to make sure he's fully polished before making his way up to Major League Baseball. My biggest fear with this still Kristian Campbell being in the mix here is that they're trying to force it, is that they're saying, this was our guy coming into spring training. We are hell-bent on making sure he's on the opening day roster. We don't care that he doesn't look fully ready. We're going to push him up here, and that could impede on his progression as he develops into a major league player, right? My hope with all of these guys, these big prospects, is that they're brought up when they're ready, right? When they're naturally ready, when they've made the adjustments they need to make, when they've sort of done everything they need to do, and then they come up, and then it's sort of a natural transition to Major League Baseball. And that's not to say Kristian Campbell hasn't done everything he needs to do. I just always worry about that. Is it too early to call this guy up? Are they pushing him too hard to actually make him a productive baseball player off rip? Because it is going to be important for him to get a good start in Major League Baseball with the pressure that's being put on him to be the Red Sox opening day second baseman. But that's not to say I don't love the idea of Kristian Campbell in Major League Baseball, and I love it for a couple of different reasons here. One, it just simply makes this Red Sox lineup that much deeper, right? You talk about the top 5 in this Red Sox lineup, and it's incredible. Duran, Devers, Bregman, Casas, Story. From there, it gets even better, or not better, but it just keeps getting deep. You add Kristian Campbell into this mix, you add Wilyer Abreu into this mix with Don and Connor Wong, and then eventually Masataka Yoshida as well. It looks really, really good from top to bottom, and adding Kristian Campbell in there only makes it better. 2, I think it makes the Red Sox forcing Rafael Devers off at third base a little bit easier to digest. I get it. Alex Bregman is a much better third baseman defensively than Rafael Devers, but replacing Rafael Devers essentially with David Hamilton, as much as David Hamilton has been impressive this spring, didn't really feel right, did it? Right? If David Hamilton was your option for second base and Kristian Campbell wasn't in the picture, I don't think the Red Sox sit there and they say, yeah, we're going to force Bregman into third base. We're going to force Rafael Devers into DH. We're going to make everyone kind of upset here with Rafael Devers specifically just to make David Hamilton your starting second baseman. If Campbell was in the picture, I think Bregman's at second and Rafael Devers is at third. And 3, obviously, Kristian Campbell's one of the most talented prospects we've seen in a very long time, right? He's done some incredibly impressive things. I want to see what that looks like at the Major League level as soon as humanly possible. So there are a lot of things to like about the idea of Kristian Campbell at second base. He's looked better defensively lately in spring training, which is fantastic. He's gotten on base in 8 of his last 10 games in spring training, so there is some positives despite the bad statistical numbers. I will say I feel bad for David Hamilton. Dude put together a really solid spring at the plate and on the field and still really isn't being considered, at least right now. Vaughn Grissom feels like a distant memory. Another guy I kind of feel bad for, right? He feels destined to be in AAA to start the season. Came into camp healthy, new look, stronger, and then promptly decided not to do well in games. I will say one thing that's kind of interesting that's been popping up lately, and I wouldn't read too much into this considering they're still very heavy on Kristian Campbell. Marcelo Meyer's getting some time at second base. If we're talking about who is the best performing player of these big 3 prospects, it's been Marcelo Meyer. Well, today he's your starting second baseman amongst the rest of your regular lineup. I don't know. I don't think there's really anything to that outside of the fact that they're just trying to get him reps at second base so we can continue to do that in AAA this season as he gets some time at shortstop, obviously, and some time at third base. But if we're talking about guys who appear ready for Major League Baseball, I would say Marcelo Meyer right now looks head over heels ready compared to these other 2 prospects. Even Roman Anthony, who's been doing really well, Marcelo Meyer's just been blowing him out of the water. He looks incredible. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but we are starting to see him get some second base reps a little bit more. And again, this is still a fluid situation. He hasn't been named the Red Sox second baseman. It is just interesting, right, that despite the poor statistics this spring, he's still getting reps with the regular club, right? He's getting starts in spring training with the rest of the regular lineup. And that this comes out that the Red Sox are still heavily favoriting Kristian Campbell to start at second base. So we'll see kind of where this ends up. We'll see the last 6-ish games, how the Red Sox go about this. I thought for a while, to be honest with you, that yesterday was going to be a big cut day for Boston. It didn't end up being a big cut day. Alex Cora came out and said, yeah, we don't really need to make a ton of decisions between now and Sunday. We really need to start hammering this home over the weekend. So maybe there's a little bit of time here before we get a ton of roster cuts, but right now this is what the Red Sox are thinking, and overall, while it is a bit surprising, I do think there's some logical reasons for both of these, so let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? What do you think about this Aroldis Chapman news? What do you think about the Kristian Campbell news? How do you think it all affects the Red Sox, and where would you go if you were the manager or the GM of the Boston Red Sox? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen instead of watch these episodes, the best way to do that is to head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. I will see you tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for our last off-season live stream, and of course, in the Red Seats.